Not even her dog. It's my dog! She's taking my dog!
Jacky Coogan enlisted in the Army on March 4, 1941. When the U.S. entered World War II as a result of the Pearl Harbor attack, Coogan requested transfer to the Army Air Force as a glider pilot because of his previous civilian flying experience. John completed his basic glider training at 29 Palms Air Academy in 29 Palms, California, and graduated from advanced glider training at Victorville Army Airfield in California on January 18, 1943. Prior to joining the Army Air Corps, he possessed a civilian pilot's license and enlisted in the Army on March 4, 1941. Following the attack on Pearl Harbor and the subsequent entry of the United States into World War II, John had aspirations to fly fighter planes. However, having turned 27 on October 26, just 2 months prior to his transfer request, he was no longer eligible for flight training. With his civilian pilot's license and the absence of age restrictions for military gliders, his only remaining option was to pursue glider flight training. Upon graduation, Flight Officer Coogan was assigned to the 319th Troop Carrier Squadron. In January 1944, British and American forces commenced glider training maneuvers at Lalitpur, India, as a demonstration for General Wingate and Lord Louis Mountbatten. During their stay at Lalitpur, the glider pilots, including Flight Officer Coogan, slept in their gliders overnight. Following the demonstration, the 500318th Provisional Air Unit returned to Lalagat Airfield, India, to begin preparations for the invasion of Burma. Glider training constituted an integral component of the preparatory activities. A formation of 10 gliders arrived at the airfield in Lalahat, where each glider was compelled to remain exposed to the scorching sun while awaiting transportation via jeep to the glider stand, a designated sheltered parking area. The intense sun resulted in internal temperatures within the gliders reaching 100 degrees Fahrenheit. On this particular day at Lalahat Airfield, Flight Officer Coogan exhibited remarkable ingenuity. While waiting for his turn, he observed an Indian laborer utilizing an elephant to transport logs. First Officer Coogan proposed that the elephant assist in towing him, offering American cigarettes as compensation. The elephant was harnessed to the glider, and the operation proceeded smoothly for approximately 50 yards, until the elephant, apprehensive about the considerable mass of the glider trailing behind, halted and turned to assess its load. To the elephant, the approaching CG-4, a glider likely appeared as a threatening entity, prompting it to bolt toward the tree line, inadvertently dragging the glider and Coogan into the jungle. As a result, the elephant lost the glider, which sustained damage to its wings, and the tow rope detached from the craft. In an area devoid of entertainment, this incident provided the glider pilots with much-needed humor and served as a lesson regarding the unreliability of elephants as tow vehicles. Flight Officer Coogan's additional responsibility included overseeing the maintenance of the tow ropes. While this task may seem insignificant, it was, in fact, crucial. The tow rope serves as a vital link between the glider and its towing aircraft, with any fraying or irregularities in the rope or its connecting mechanisms posing significant risks. Nevertheless, despite his ability to ensure the quality of the tow ropes, Coogan lacked the authority to influence directives from superiors concerning the overloading of the glider fleet. This excess weight was a considerable factor contributing to the loss of gliders during the Broadway mission. Operational orders for Thursday indicated that Flight Officer Coogan was assigned to pilot a glider on dual tow into Piccadilly with a chalk number of 32P. One significant challenge in researching the Burma campaign arises from the scarcity of administrative records maintained by the 1st Air Commandos. Cochrane expressed a strong opposition to allocating resources towards administration, adhering to General Arnold's directive, "To hell with the paperwork, go out and fight." This internal oversight has been compounded by inaccuracies reported by newspapers and journalists during the conflict. Historical documentation reveals that Coogan was designated to land at Landing Zone Piccadilly. Contrary to assertions, he did not pilot into Landing Zone Broadway. Instead, he served as the lead glider pilot for the subsequent flight into Landing Zone Chowringhe, where he became the first to land. However, a news article published in the West erroneously asserted that Jacky Coogan was the pilot of the first glider to land. During the overall operation, a distinction belonging to glider leader Captain Bill Taylor, who was the first to land at Broadway. This misrepresentation, which never received a correction from Coogan, negatively affected his rapport with other veterans of the operation and continues to be referenced as fact nearly 80 years later. Following the publication of this story, Jacky Coogan became a spectral figure within the narrative of Burma, reportedly present at both landing zones and piloting various aircraft, including an L-5 and a CG-4A. In the 2020 book, Strange and by Don Ains, a fictitious report from General Ferguson claims that Jacky Coogan arrived in a flight of light planes to evacuate wounded personnel the morning after the landing. Ains quotes, "This was our first experience of these very gallant light plane pilots, one of whom was Sergeant Jacky Coogan of Charlie Chaplin and the Kid fame. This scenario is implausible for two reasons. Firstly, Jacky Coogan was confirmed on the crew list for the flight into Chowring-He that same night, making travel to Broadway and back impossible in time for the following mission. Secondly, Brigadier Ferguson was not the brigade commander at Broadway, but rather the commander of the 16th Brigade, whose ground operation aligned with Wingate's strategy." Comparing this account with the memoir of Brigadier Calvert in Chindit's Long-Range Penetration, published in 1973, provides further insight into the complexities of these historical narratives. Pilots, including Sergeant Jacky Coogan, known for his appearances in Charlie Chaplin's The Kid, are referenced in various sources. This citation mirrors one found in Ains' work, despite Calvert's memoir being published half a century earlier. Coogan is also mentioned in several other narratives, such as Tony Redding's War in the Wilderness, The Chindits in Burma, 1943 to 1944, where a wounded sergeant recounts his evacuation by Coogan in a light aircraft after sustaining injuries during a patrol near the White City, a strategic location established to obstruct a railway close to Malu. This raises the question of the accuracy of these accounts. Numerous glider pilots operated the L-1 or L-5 models in conjunction with their duties in the CG-4A cockpit. Brigadier Calvert did indeed oversee the evacuation of troops from Landing Zone Broadway using light aircraft. However, Coogan was not among the pilots present on March 6. Following his landing at Landing Zone Chowring-He on that same night, Coogan remained within the operational area. The White City strongpoint was established at Malu by Calvert's brigade around March 19, 1944, which was approximately 2 weeks after the landings at Broadway and Chowring-He. Thus, it is plausible that Calvert's memory of Coogan evacuating some of his injured personnel could stem from a conflation of events over time. Moreover, it is plausible to consider the scenario of Brigadier Ferguson having troops evacuated by Coogan. However, this did not occur at Landing Zone Broadway as asserted in Ains' publication. The roster of individuals involved in the Burma campaign is extensive, whereas the historical records are relatively scarce. It appears that a number of authors over the years have elaborated on mere fragments of factual incidents, often misattributing names and locations. Consequently, we have included the subsequent section of our article regarding Landing Zone Broadway, drawing on Brigadier Calvert's notably detailed memoir of his experiences in Burma. This serves as a framework for analyzing the distortion of facts pertaining to Coogan in contemporary writings, while recognizing that Calvert's account remains within the realm of possibility regarding the casualty evacuation of the 77th Brigade, though it did not involve Jacky Coogan on D-Day at Landing Zone Broadway. The overall congestion of gliders in the landing zone resulted in further wreckages, leading to the deaths and injuries of numerous Chindits, aircrew members, and engineers. This situation posed a significant concern for Calvert, as a potential Japanese attack would hinder the 77th's ability to maneuver against the enemy while also needing to care for their wounded. On March 6, following the initial landing, Calvert recounts that Major Ribbery from the United States Army Air Forces arrived at Broadway with a flight of 12 light aircraft, including L-1s and L-5s. Ribbery gallantly offered to transport the wounded back. This marked our first encounter with these courageous light plane pilots, one of whom was Sergeant Jacky Coogan. At 7:25 p.m., as the first troop transports began to land at Broadway, one Pathfinder glider and 11 others departed from Lalagat Airfield en route to Chowring-He. Following the successful landing at Broadway, Wingate opted to utilize the landing zone at Chowring-He. On D+1, a second contingent of 1st Air Commandos deployed 12 gliders at Chowringhe, located approximately 58 miles south of Broadway. These landings proved successful, notwithstanding the unfortunate loss of one crew. Nevertheless, the landing zone presented two notable disadvantages. Firstly, it was alarmingly close to enemy air and ground forces, situated in an entirely flat, open expanse of forest that had been traversed by vehicles in multiple directions. Secondly, the troops were required to cross the Irrawaddy River westward before they could effectively contribute to their mission. Upon Wingate's evaluation of Chowringhe, he concluded that the site had fulfilled its purpose after successfully landing several columns of the 111th Brigade and diverting Japanese attention from Broadway, after which he commanded the remainder of the 111th to proceed to Broadway by air. Upon landing in a dimly lit field, Coogan instructed his Gurkhas to position themselves along the periphery of the landing zone to establish a security perimeter for the area designated for the construction of an airstrip. Coogan hurried to place smudge pots to assist the other 11 gliders in navigating to the landing zone. Among the subsequent gliders was Flight Officer Charles B. Turner, who piloted Chalk No. 9 Charlie. Turner operated a distinctive glider. He had salvaged a machine gun from a downed B-17 and mounted it in the nose of his glider, enabling his co-pilot, a Gurkha Lance Corporal, to fire it if necessary. This glider was the only one armed for a combat mission during World War II. Moments after the smudge pots were ignited, the remaining gliders began to arrive. 2 gliders sustained damage due to a rough landing, including Turner's, which lost its wings and skidded past the other gliders on the landing zone. Fortunately, no injuries resulted from these landings. The final glider, Chalk No. 12, was piloted by Lieutenant Robert Dow, who was tasked with transporting the most crucial and sought-after cargo, a bulldozer, and 3 engineers. Dow approached the designated landing zone but missed it on his initial attempt. He executed a smooth 180-degree turn and realigned himself with the markers on the runway. However, obscured from view during this approach was a tree located at the far end of the landing area. The nose of Lieutenant Dow's glider collided directly with the tree, resulting in the fatalities of all on board. As the glider spiraled uncontrollably, a bulldozer crashed through its front, leading to its destruction. Consequently, additional engineers and equipment would be required to continue the work on the airstrip. Coogan received instructions to keep his personnel concealed until another glider could access the landing zone the following day. As dusk fell the next evening, the Gurkhas commenced clearing the tall grass with their kukri knives. They managed to clear 12 acres of land when a glider arrived at 9 p.m., delivering engineering equipment from India. Shortly thereafter, line officers Billy Moore from Portland, Oregon, and Vernon Noland from Port Neches, Texas, flew in with another glider from the 1st Burma Strip, carrying additional equipment and Corporal Heiberger to operate it. More gliders followed, delivering 2 more pieces of machinery and a jeep. At 9:15, the aviation engineers, led by First Lieutenant Jeremy Androlonis from Shenandoah, Pennsylvania, began their operations. Only 5 men were available to handle the 4 pieces of equipment, with 1 man serving as both mechanic for the others and chauffeur for the jeep, which sped around the field, delivering messages or towing gliders from the runway. Precisely 4 hours after commencing their task, the engineers finished constructing a 3,000-foot grass runway on which a C-47 landed at 1:25 a.m., carrying British reinforcements. 3 days after Coogan's landing, Japanese bombers attacked, causing considerable damage to the airstrip. However, this destruction proved inconsequential, as all British troops had evacuated the night prior in pursuit of a new objective, and the American forces had also departed, taking their gliders and engineering equipment with them. The Japanese forces merely wasted their bombs on what had been a temporary landing strip for Wingate's raiders, as noted in Yank magazine. According to the historical records of the 319th, 6 of the gliders that landed at Chowringhe were retrieved and transported back to base. 4 sustained damage and 2 were destroyed by the enemy. Second Lieutenant John Coogan continued participating in missions within his squadron until June, when many members of the 319th received orders to return to the United States to engage in a war bond drive. Following the conclusion of the war, John Coogan returned to the film and television industry as Jacky Coogan, eventually achieving recognition as Uncle Fester in the 1964 TV series The Addams Family. Having navigated a life intertwined with theater, film, and military service, he served his country honorably during one of World War II's most innovative operations. He passed away on March 1st, 1984. Thanks for watching. If you have a thought on Jacky Coogan, drop a comment below. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you want to see similar content, don't forget to hit the subscription button